Bro needs coffee.
My God, there's a lot of Brians.
And we're live.
Way too many Brians.
Oh, like
One is
Brian,
too many.
Brian
This is-
Coronavirus?
So welcome everyone to the Diagnostic Discussion After Dark, the Tech Talks Part 3. Not about the coronavirus. COVID
Part
19,
3,
Wuhan,
Invasion
Kung
of
Flu.
the Bryans.
Not about
Yeah,
any of
this
that
is a-
stuff.
This is a horror film right here. Team Brian
Right.
Colada.
This is a lot of Brian's. So for anyone that didn't get the joke, you should go back and watch the CTI videos because it'd be a lot funnier. But this is a lot of Brian's. How many, do we have actual 4 Brian's on here, right? Yeah.
5, I think. 5.
I don't know.
1,
We got
2,
enough.
5 Bryans.
That's enough. Well, so we're gonna wrap up our Tech Talks section with this part 3. I think we're gonna wrap up this time, right? Got everything squared away for
Hopefully.
that. We've also got
This is
some
the
special
finale.
guests to talk about some challenges in the industry, and as always, from now on, because we're gonna chain him to his chair, we got Matt Fansler with us. So that's
No matter how fast he goes.
that's right. No matter no matter if he goes right past ridiculous, straight to ludicrous.
He's gone plaid.
It's gone plaid. We're gonna have it. So I'll let Bryn take off with what we're gonna kind of flow into this tonight. But we've actually got some really fun guests on this evening. And
Hold on a second. That was way too
remains
quick.
to be seen.
That was way too quick. We can't go right into Bryn's case study. We need about 20, 30 minutes of us making fun of stuff.
No, we can go right into a case study.
Yeah,
Or we're into a
actually-
case study. We'll have plenty to make fun of.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Gosh.
Yeah,
All right, I'm out of here, guys.
yeah. He's got a BMW that was at his shop
You're
for
welcome.
7 months.
Get back here, Brian.
Yeah, back here, Bryn Coffee Colada.
That's my
All right.
favorite kind of colada.
That's right. The Colate.
I like Brian Colada virus. That's a good one.
I like the Kung Flu. I think that was probably the best.
Everyone wants to know if you ate the pizza yet, Perkins.
Oh my god. Yes, I did.
Oh.
And
I
the
did eat
pizza was
pizza,
awesome.
and it was good. I'm not
It
gonna
expired
lie.
meat.
It
Expired meat
tasted
pizza.
aged, right?
It was aged to perfection. I've got a
All
visitor
right.
over here laughing about it.
Well,
So we got like a full screen of people now.
there's a lot of people here.
Well, not technically.
Is this a new view for Mike too?
Sorry, gentlemen. My
Robinson?
internet was going wonky.
It's okay. Well, we can see Mike Robinson today and his head. Now, does everybody pay attention to Mike because when he does laugh, he laughs like a muppet, or like one of those characters from South Park, the Canadians.
I think it's a pest dispenser.
Hey.
Terrence and Philip.
Okay, sorry, love you, Mike.
It's all good.
Now we can do Brent's case study.
Well, we can introduce our
Oh,
guest.
yeah.
Should do
So
that.
yeah,
Yeah, what are we
We
doing
have
tonight?
top left there is Brian Colada, and then there's me. And there's Brian Colada just to the right of me.
No, it's not in that same order for everyone
Oh.
else.
You know,
well, I'm seeing Brian Colada, and look, there's Brian Colada and a Tiger King. Then I'm seeing another Brian
Brian-
Colada.
Brian
Brain-
Vortex Q1L2TSA.
That's
Spelled
Colada.
his name with
Is
one
that
L.
the?
What's the significance of the vortex? I mean, who made that up?
Let's not even get in there.
Yeah.
If you guys have never spoken
never
to
get out.
Brian in private, when he starts asking you pointed questions, just walk away. Don't get
Come
caught in
on.
that vortex. Just walk away. All right, too many inside jokes. People are walking away in droves.
Yes.
I thought that was
So-
from all the Bryans.
So we have some special guests later, which we'll talk about later. But I think let's get right into Bryn's stuff.
All right. So let's see here. We good to go? Right there.
Yeah.
Move this.
Yep.
All right. So this was the first Tech Talks that we did at Vision, or that I did. I have two, so it's lucky you.
Yeah,
You
wait,
get
wait,
to
wait.
hear
How
from me
did you-
twice.
How did you get 2? I want to know how you got 2. Like, do you know inside people or something?
I don't know. I guess my ideas were pretty
Yeah,
good.
wait, man, that's kind of messed up. How'd that happen?
I don't know. I submitted 2 ideas, and Matt.
I submitted 2 ideas.
Matt, I'm calling nepotism. Just saying.
One of the case studies seemed legit. The other one was just kind of let everybody detox, but we just couldn't figure out which one was which.
Oh, I like it.
I
Okay,
like
good.
that. Go on.
Makes sense.
All right.
Moving on.
So this one is titled, as you can see, Efficiency Through Case Study Analysis. So we use case studies all the time in training, and we generally do so because it helps to tie everything together. We've learned some kind of concept, some kind of testing techniques, and then we can tie it all together by watching, witnessing a case study. That's kind of what we use them for. But in this case, we're not using, case studies for training purposes. We're using a case study. We're talking about case studies for efficiency reasons. And what I mean by that is analyzing your own case studies. So once we're all professionals here. We generally, you've seen those memes where the kid's got his arms out and he's super proud of whatever it is that he's done, or like I think in one of my presentations, maybe even this one, Tom Hanks, after he builds the fire, right, he's dancing around in circles, super excited. We all we're professionals. We go to training so that we get good at what we do. Efficiency is part of it, but we want to be as accurate as possible. At least in my mind, that's kind of most of where I kind of spend my time, is making sure that I'm accurate. So sometimes I overlook efficiency. So it basically, because we're professionals, we should be excited, every time we get, diagnose a vehicle, run around the shop high-fiving everybody, really celebrating those moments. But once we're done celebrating those moments, I think it's very important to analyze your own case study or your own diagnostic process so that you can see if there's anything different that you could have done. Maybe, to be more efficient. Maybe you chased, a rabbit down the wrong hole for too long. So analyzing that can kind of help you the next time around, again, to be more efficient. So that's what we're going to do today, is share a case study that we diagnosed at our shop. And it's one that we were excited about. It kind of drug us through the trenches a bit. Once we were done, we definitely took the time to celebrate, but we did analyze it, and there were some inefficiencies there. So we're going to present this case study today the way we diagnosed it in our shop. We're going to kind of share the inefficiencies with you, but we're not going to point them out during the presentation. And during this session, we asked the attendees to kind of just make a mental note of them, write them down, whatever. And at the end of the presentation, I would like some feedback with regard to what we could have done differently to be more efficient. I think there's some time delay here, so I don't know if you guys can decide or help me decide whether that's something, if that's reasonable or realistic, or if we can just maybe talk amongst it ourselves with it, especially those of us that weren't there in person. So with that, we're going to go and get started. Real quick, does anybody know, can I make this presentation presenter mode, or does it have to be, I think it has to be like this, doesn't it?
I don't know.
Looks right.
Yeah, you look good. I see a Dodge Ram.
I don't know, I
Ram
just
Man.
kind of like seeing the next slides that's coming up. It's kind of messing with me.
Oh, gotcha.
You
Oh.
need two screens to do that, Bryn.
Okay, oh well. All right, so here's our vehicle. It's a 2014 Ram 1500 3.6 liter. This was, when it was brought to us, as an intermittent check engine light, intermittent electronic throttle control warning light, intermittent no throttle response, and intermittent rough running condition. But that is not how it began. Originally, the owner felt like that, in his words, the transmission was going into neutral, and he felt like that was occurring more often when hitting bumps. So he thought that was kind of related. He took it to a shop here in town, and when the vehicle first arrived there, they found a technical service bulletin published by Chrysler that they felt was related to their symptoms. And then in this technical service bulletin, the solution was to do a software update on the PCM. So they referred this client to the dealer, and the dealer did the software update on the PCM. But at this point, in the customer's mind, this is when the most current symptoms started. The intermittent rough running condition, no throttle response, electronic throttle control light flashing, and that stuff appeared to happen after this software update. So he took the vehicle back to the original shop, I guess because he likes pain, like so many of our, anyways, he took it back to the shop. When it was back to the shop the second time around, they replaced a crankshaft position sensor, the electronic throttle control assembly, and there was no changes. There was no changes at all. So at that point, the shop felt like they were in over their heads. So they reached out to us because we like pain as well, and asked us if we would be willing to help them kind of get a direction on it. So in this case, we do some mobile work, but I asked them to have it towed to us. We when the vehicle arrived, we were able to duplicate it right away. And keep in mind that, as I mentioned a moment ago, the concerns are intermittent, but when it did arrive, we were able to duplicate it right away, which is cool. Pulling it into the bay, it was running rough, and the throttle response kind of wasn't there, and the electronic throttle control light was on. So we decided to look at some fault codes real quick, and I'm not going to go through all of these fault codes, but I just want you to recognize a couple things here. We have 3.5 pages, or slide pages, I should say, of fault codes. And the point that I want to try to make here is, as diagnostic technicians, this can be overwhelming, but it's especially overwhelming when you're new to diagnostic work. The challenge really is trying to kind of figure out which ones are going to be related to your concern, kind of analyzing all of them and seeing, which ones may be related to each other. Also, which ones may be self-induced, right? Especially if you're getting the vehicle after somebody else has attempted to repair this thing, you're having to try to decide, is there, are these fault codes self-induced? Are they related to each other? Are they related to the problem at all? And go from there. Again, this is challenging for the most skilled diagnostic technician at times, but it's definitely overwhelming for new diagnostic technicians. So in this case, what I usually do is I recommend documenting every single one of the fault codes. If there's any freeze frame data that's there, you document that as well. You do that analyzing process. You kind of try to decide which ones you think are going to give you a good diagnostic direction, so that but again, don't forget to document them all. And then, like I said, the freeze frame data that goes along with it. So we decided in this case to go ahead and blow the codes out and see what came back. So after we cleared all the fault codes, the symptoms were present. Again, that's something I want to make sure, and a few times throughout the night, I'll make sure that I bring that up. As diagnostic technicians, we have to make sure when you're dealing with intermittent problems that we're doing, our test or analyzing when the fault is present. Not that there's cases, I should say there are cases where when the symptoms aren't present, you can still pick up on some clues. Just something to definitely consider. So after we cleared the fault codes out, and we went back in to kind of monitor the fault codes that returned. In this case, at this point, the fault codes were still present. So we are much more manageable now. We have one PowerPoint slide page for the fault codes here, and we're going to focus on the engine stuff. The P2167s, 2166, 2116, and 2115, as you can see here, are all accelerator pedal position sensor fault codes. But if you notice, the description says minimum stop performance and maximum stop performance for the pedal position sensors 1 and 2. The last code that's on here is a P0642. So as we're looking through all of these fault codes, on the engine side at least, again, you're basically tasked again with trying to decide which one of these fault codes are going to give us the most diagnostic direction at this point. And the 2167s, the accelerator pedal position sensor fault codes, at least in our mind, really quickly, we recalled that the shop before us replaced the electronic throttle control assembly. So we have some throttle, and we have lack of throttle response, and we have electronic throttle control warning light flashing. So we have accelerator pedal position sensor faults here. You're thinking, well, we have symptoms that are kind of related, so maybe these things are related to our concern. Maybe these are going to give us a diagnostic direction. But early on, the way that the description looks to me, it just looks like it's due to an incomplete service. As I mentioned just a moment ago, you recall the shop before us replaced the electronic throttle control assembly. And my guess is that they basically did not complete that repair process. There was probably some relearns that needed to take place. But the P0642, as the description is displayed here, is sensor reference voltage 1 circuit low. Now, again, with the delay, it's kind of hard to get some interactiveness. So I really like to be able to interact with you guys. But for those in the panel here, would you guys agree that this is something that we usually see, and we're usually pretty focused on it? We're pretty excited about it, right?
I know I'm excited. I can't say how excited
No
I am,
doubt
but I'm
about it.
excited.
Yeah, I mean, but in all seriousness, the sensor reference voltage are certainly important circuits, right? Anytime we see a problem or a fault code, and it's an intermittent problem, but it's acting up right now. We can see that this PO642 has come right back. That's certainly something that we were excited about and decided to investigate further. But beforehand, we wanted to try to see if there was anything that we could do with regard to resetting, maybe some kind of relearn on these accelerator pedal position minimum max stop performance codes. So we did just that, and we found that that was the case. Basically, all that needed to be done is an ETC relearn. So we decided to go ahead and perform that scan tool function in this case, which is just about every case that I could think of, and clear the fault codes again. And this time, this is what came back. And as you can see here,
It's fixed. Send it.
yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Is it fixed? You're dealing with an intermittent problem. So that's something to consider, but did we fix the vehicle? I mean, we don't have any really, all of those codes went away. And all of the accelerator pedal position sensor codes, but also the 5-volt reference sensor circuit fault codes. For those of us that are experienced, I mean, it's probably pretty obvious that it's just probably not acting up, right? It's an intermittent issue and we're not duplicating it right now.
If
But
I know
again,
Bryn, this car is not fixed. There's more to the story.
but if we're new, that's definitely a challenge. You just have to kind of really analyze what your fault code was. Is it possible that we could have fixed a reference voltage fault by just doing a relearn on the, no, it's not possible. So just kind of just thinking it through, and we could, at this point, we clearly decided that no, it's not fixed. The accelerator pedal position sensor fault codes probably are fixed, but the PO642 fault code is not fixed. So we're basically, again, not able to duplicate this concern at this point. It's not fixed. We're just not able to duplicate it. It's intermittent. So we decided this PO642 we were excited about earlier. We're still excited about. That's another thing to consider when you're dealing with intermittence. The PO642 is there when the fault was present. The PO642 is not there when the fault is not present. So again, that's just a little more proof that this is probably a code that we're going to need to chase, and it's probably going to get us in the right direction. So while we're not able to duplicate the concern, we decided to go ahead and do some research, because many in the industry have talked about this. I think Eric Ziegler even had an article in a Motor Age at one point that in this article, he talked about how research is probably at least 50% of the diagnostic process. I think that's true for any aftermarket technician, especially, or at least technicians that are forced to work on several or even all makes. If you're fortunate enough to work on a brand or two, you're probably doing a lot less research. You're still doing something, but doing less. So anyways, we're not able to duplicate it. So we're taking advantage of the time. We're going to go ahead and get familiar with this PO642 fault code. I mean, it's really messing me up to see. I can probably minimize this, right? Anyways, so I'll read a few things to you. I'm not going to read the whole thing, so don't worry. The powertrain control module contains two internal 5-volt reference sensor supply sources, reference voltage 1 and reference voltage 2. Each of these 5-volt supply sources are split internally into parallel circuits to provide a 5-volt reference to multiple 3-wire sensors. That's the main thing I want to read to you there. It's monitored anytime, pretty much anytime the ignition is on, it's being monitored. Set condition: when the powertrain control module recognizes the primary 5-volt circuit voltage is too low, one trip fault and the ETC light is flashing. That's familiar, right? It sounds familiar. Possible causes are 5-volt supply circuit shorted to ground, crankshaft position sensor, oil pressure sensor, crankshaft position sensor, if that sounds familiar. The shop before us replaced that, if you'll recall. Oil pressure sensor, throttle body assembly, again, familiar. Shop replaced that as well. AC pressure transducer and accelerator pedal position sensor, or the powertrain control module. Now, fortunately for the client, in this case, they did not just take a guess and replace the powertrain control module. They decided at that point that they went over the head and brought it to us. So, but anyways, at least we're more familiar with this fault code. Once we were done, we realized that the symptoms were back. So we decided to check the codes again, and this PO642 is back when the symptoms are present. Again, very important to recognize this. Symptoms are present, the PO642 is there. Symptoms are not present, the PO642 is not there. Now the symptoms are present again, the PO642 is back. Again, just really giving us more confidence that this is it. This is the guy that we need to do.
Hey, Bryn,
Yep, sir.
we have a question in the chat. For practical mechanic asked, would a shorted 5-volt reference to the APPS cause the min-max code to set? The minimum voltage would be below the learned value.
I don't think it would cause these fault codes. If I back up here, let's see. And not that possible causes are, well, I guess in this case it's ETC relearn or accelerator pedal position sensor fault. I guess the answer is I really didn't investigate this a lot because I knew the electronic throttle control assembly had just been replaced, and knowing where the shop came from, it's a great shop, but they really, I just believed that they did not complete this repair process. So seeing all of these and knowing that they just replaced that throttle body assembly, I looked at this and saw ETC relearn, which I already suspected was the case on all 4 of these fault codes. So we decided, again, early on, just to try to do the relearn. It's simple enough, right? It's a button. It's literally pushing buttons on a scan tool. If this thing is gone after this, we're probably pretty confident that it's fixed. Again, it's intermittent, so we didn't know for sure, but pretty confident that it's fixed. Again, after we did the ETC relearn, cleared the fault codes. Those codes did not return, but neither did the PO642. So we could be dealing with a situation where it's intermittent. That's why the codes didn't return. But if you recall here, once we did our research on the PO642 and came back to the vehicle, the symptoms are present. The PO642 is there now. Now, if it were a scenario where we did have, maybe those accelerator pedal position sensor fault codes or minimum maximum stop performance fault codes are related to it, then I would suspect at this point that they would have returned. So at this point, again, the PO642 was there when the symptoms were present, not there when the symptoms weren't present, and back again when the symptoms are present. This and the fact that sensor voltage reference one fault code in and of itself is pretty huge. The other thing, I don't know, that's kind of the direction I went. Hopefully that answers the question in this case. Again, really the main thing is I kind of suspected that it was related to not doing the relearn after the throttle body replacement. And we just did the scan tool function because it was super easy, and they went away and never came back. So this PO642 is back. The symptoms are present. Where do we go? What do we do at this point? I'll get you guys' help since we have a delay in the...
You send it to the dealer.
It's already been to the dealer.
Replace all of the things.
Replace all of the things. I mean, we can't ship it at this point, right? I mean, many of you are here are like us. You've kind of earned the reputation to figuring things out. Man, I don't know. It's management-wise, it's probably best to just swallow the pride and let some of these things go. But this was certainly in our wheelhouse. But so as far as testing-wise, what do we do? Preferably somebody that did not attend Vision Tech Talks.
Test the 5-volt circuit.
Whoa, there you go, Mike.
Mike Robinson, awesome, thank you. This presentation was done at the same session that Richard Falco's Stop Wasting Time with Your Scope presentation was done. So I will say that
all the things.
With guys like, so most people have one angel here and one devil here. I have 2 devils. I have one Hans Jorgensen on this side and one Chris Martino on this side, and they're both saying scope all the things. So no, in all seriousness, I did monitor some scan data in here, and I was kind of paying attention to reference voltage issues, but guilty as charged with regard to what Richard Falco was saying. And I guess mostly in this point in hindsight, I don't remember seeing anything in the data that was like, I obviously have a direction to go here, other than maybe in the data. I just can't remember honestly, but I'm thinking maybe when I was monitoring data, it was just more proof that I needed to verify sensor reference voltage. So as Mike Robinson just mentioned, basically we need to test the 5-volt reference circuit at this point. And that's what we did. Because we have Hans Jorgensen on this shoulder and Chris Martino on this shoulder telling us to scope all the things, we decided to check these 5-volt reference circuits, but we decided to do so with a scope just because I don't usually mess around with a DVOM unless I have to. I mean, I do love to scope all the things. So that's what we did. But the first step is seeing where these 5-volt reference circuits are. In this case, we're fortunate. There's only two connectors on the PCM, C1 and C2. As you can see here, C1 has a K854 5-volt reference circuit and a K852 5-volt reference circuit, and then C2 has a F855 and an F856. There's four 5-volt reference sensor circuits on this case, or on this vehicle, and it just so happens that we have 4 channels on our picoscope, so that's what we decided to do. Of course, we've gotten familiar with where the circuits are on the connectors, and now we got to figure out which one's C1 and C2. So we did look at service information. We determined that the powertrain control module C1 is the one closer to the center of the vehicle, and the one just to the left here, I have a mouse, I guess I could use it, is C2, obviously. So we decided to use our 4-channel scope to look at 4 of these 5-volt reference circuits, and this is just a picture of our setup because we've pierced wires because Matt Fonslow said that we could. And we ran the cables inside the cabin, mainly because we did find, and I forgot to mention this, we did find it was intermittent. So they're really throughout this case study, the vehicle did sit for long periods of times in the bay. And for those of you that are scoping vehicles and trying to duplicate concerns in the bay, it's really frustrating to make that move to go from in the bay testing to actually running this stuff into the cab to test drive it. It's like a very hard decision for me. I pretty much hate the moment that I decide I have to do that. But in this case, we felt more confident being able to duplicate it by running it into the car. So that's what we did. And this is what we found. We'll start with the top. The top is the F856. That's a gold trace or channel D. And you can see that is a fairly boring, stable 5-volt reference there. There's nothing really going on. But the green trace just below it, that's F855. And this is more like Mike Molesky after a couple tequilas. It's a lot more fun, right? There's a lot more going on right there. This is a fun one. The top one's boring. The 2 middle ones, gold, the trace and the green trace and the red trace, the green trace being F85 and the red trace being K852. Those guys are obviously some craziness is going on. And back all the way at the bottom is a blue trace, which is K854 channel A. And that one's boring and reliable, right? It's being reliable at this point, a nice stable 5-volt reference. So going back to the green and red trace, what can we see is going on in the green and red trace? Certainly some fun, activity, right? Some exciting stuff.
Well, hold on, Brent. We got to clear this up. All right. So the 2 middle traces are like Mike Molesky after a couple tequilas, right?
They're like Mike Molesky after a couple
so
tequilas.
What you could say
if
is
Mike Molesky.
Crazy.
Yeah. So Mike would be Mike Molesky at Vision and Vision the year before. Last year. Yeah, and then the blue trace would be like Mike at Vision this year. Yeah. Okay. Moving on.
Mike was very responsible this year, wasn't he? But he was still fun. Anyways, we have a lot of
thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We have a lot of cool activity here going on in the green and gold red trace here. I mean, you guys, what can you see on the green and gold trace here? It's fun, right? There's activity there, but what's happening?
The green and gold or the red
I'm sorry, the red and green. Yeah.
Green and red.
Christmas colors.
I see dropouts, man.
A lot of activity. The voltage is dropping.
Voltage is dropping, right? And I think if you look at the cursors, I think it was, what are we seeing here? The red, so 1.3 volts drop on the red trace and 1.4 volts drop on the green trace. What can be causing this?
Bad stuff or wiring, bad sensor wiring being all worn out, shorts, yeah.
Partial short to ground.
I guess back up just a bit. If you have a steady, if you're supposed to have a stable 5-volt reference or very near 5 volts, right? If you're supposed to have that and you see the voltage drop and it's not stable and steady on any circuit, what kind of things could you be looking at? You could be looking at open circuits, partial opens, some high resistance maybe, or say maybe shorts to grounds, right? All of those things could, depending on where you're measuring, right? And where it originates, all of those things could cause that, couldn't they?
Yeah, I wouldn't say an open because it's not consistently, dropped out. It's definitely erratic.
It's not going all the way to zero, I guess, is why you think it's not, couldn't be
Yeah.
a open.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are we leaning more towards at this point? Something to consider too, for those of you guys that are watching, is if you recall, this is where we're measuring. You have to really consider that too. When you're diagnosing a vehicle, you need to consider where the circuits originate, and you have to consider where you're measuring. In this case, we're measuring maybe what, a couple inches outside of the PCM connectors, and these circuits originate from the PCM. The PCM is what supplies these 5-volt reference circuits.
So they're being yanked down.
They're most likely, I mean, for those of us that are at all familiar with this stuff, it's most likely got some kind of short or partial short in the circuit somewhere, right? Something to consider is if they are, Brian says there's probably not opens because he would expect to see them go all the way to zero if they were. I don't know, maybe that's the case, but let's say that it is an open. Where would the open have to be, considering where we're measuring?
It would have
The
to
partial
be
open,
That
intermittent
would be
open.
like a terminal fitment.
Yeah, it would
Yeah,
have to be from your connector back to the PCM inside.
It would, yeah, it would have to be where we're measuring, between where we're measuring and the place where it originates. Again, we have to be mindful where these circuits originate, where they terminate, and where we're measuring. In this case, if there was any kind of really rapid intermittent open circuit or something like that, it would have to be between where we're measuring, where it originates, which is 2 inches. We're measuring 2 inches outside of that PCM, which is not likely. And for these types of failures, usually that's not likely anyways. And like Brian said, he suspects it would look a little bit different if it were like some opens or something like that. But it would have to be basically, because it's affecting both of these circuits, it would have to probably be something inside the PCM. But the other thing we mentioned is a potential short, which is more likely, right? Where would the short have to be for it to cause this?
I would say downstream.
I think so. Anywhere, just knowing attending classes like Richard Falco's the other day. He did one Monday night. He's got another one Wednesday. What is it? 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. Wednesday, Richard, with CTI.
8 o'clock.
8 p.m. Eastern with CTI. He did one the other day, which was 8 p.m. Eastern with CTI, and then he'll do another one, I think, in the afternoon on Friday, right?
Friday at 1. Yep.
So it's classes like this that allow us to understand. In this case, you'll see in a moment what kind of circuit it is, but generally, even if there is some parallel, even if there is some parallel stuff going on with these types of circuits, usually there are points of the circuit that are series. But regardless, what we know from attending those fundamental electrical classes is if it's a short, it can affect the current or voltage anywhere in that circuit, potentially, depending on the style of circuit. But if it's a short anywhere in this leg or downstream of this leg, it should cause some voltage dropouts. Would you guys agree?
I agree.
Yep, I agree.
So how do we verify whether it's a short or something else? And how do we prove that?
Diagram?
We got to look at a diagram, don't we?
Yeah, I would. I think you just start winging sensors at it. Call up Dorman, get as many sensors as you can, and then get the real ones.
So knowing that a short in the circuit could affect the voltage drop in these circuits just about anywhere. And what happens when we have a short? A short, by the way, by definition, in my opinion, I shouldn't say by definition, but a short is when current is bypassing the intended load, right? Every circuit has intended loads or intentional loads. In these cases, these are sensor circuits, so the loads are sensors. So if there's a short, then there's going to be a path of least resistance to ground that's bypassing those intended sensors. So if those, when current increases, voltage goes down. And that was kind of the thing that I just mentioned. That's kind of the hint. Current should increase when we have a short. So we're going to use a current clamp on these voltage reference circuits so that we can see if current increases when these voltage drops. So that's our next plan of attack. we already kind of know where the circuits are because we're already checking the voltage at them. And because we know current's the same everywhere in the circuit, we're going to go ahead and just put a current clamp right around these traces, or right around these circuits, and kind of, again, monitor current when the voltage drops. This is, if you recall, the K852 in this case is the red trace on this screen. But on this screen, the blue trace is the K852 voltage, and the red trace is the K852 current. The voltage drops there right in the center of that scope capture, but the current does not increase. So the party's not over, guys. Blue is definitely having a good time, but it's really more of an effect of something else, right? Because in this case, we can see that this circuit is not the one that has the short. But that's okay. We still have F855 to look at. So the capture to the left is the red trace is F855. That's current. The blue trace in this case, you may as well just ignore it. I'm not sure why I didn't have the reference voltage on this capture, but the red trace is the reference voltage current for that F855. And the capture to the left, there's no current increase, there's no symptoms that are present. The capture to the right, the symptoms are present, and you can see the current increase at that point. So by using testing the voltage initially, we could see those two circuits voltage drop when the symptoms are present. Now we've used a current clamp around each one, and we can see the F855 circuit, the current is in fact increasing when the symptoms are present. So we know that we have a short in that F855 circuit. So now what do? We know we have a short in the F855 circuit. Are we finished with this vehicle? Do we call the customer and tell him he has a short? What do we do at this point? And I'm not talking, management stuff here. I'm not talking about how to sell diagnostics. We can, but that's not what I'm referring to here. What do we do? What's the next step? Are we done? Do we ship it? Can we fix it? Do we take a guess and that it's probably a sensor and just throw all of the sensors on it?
Well, it can't. We know it can't be fixed because it's a Dodge.
Right.
And like I said, all of the dormant sensors, and then 2 weeks later we'll do them all over again. It's job security, man. Job security.
I gotcha. So what we decided to do is, between Carlos and myself, we had 3 low amp clamps. So we decided to just strategically look at the wiring diagram and place the low amp clamp at different points in the circuit. When the symptoms were present, we would monitor which one of these circuits the current would increase in. If you look at the bottom right here, let me see if I can find my mouse. This is, in this next capture, this is where the channel D or gold trace is going to be. This is the main feed. That's where we already saw, I didn't write the circuit numbers, but this is F855. Oh, it says it at the top here. This is F855 circuit. It comes out of the PCM here, splices, goes to the throttle body, the oil pressure sensor, and the crank position sensor. Well, we know it's probably not the crank position sensor, right? Because the shop already replaced that, right? And they probably use an OE crank sensor, I'm sure. All kidding aside, yeah, we have 4 channels, but we only had 4 clamps. So we decided to, put one here so that we can compare these two to this one. We know that the current is going to increase on this main feed because we already saw that it did. So when the current increases here on channel D, we're going to look at channel B and channel C and see if the current increases on either one of these. Does that make sense to everybody?
Perfect sense.
All right. So we do just that, and I feel like there's something. Anyways, we do just that. Let's see if here. Uh-oh. How do I? Now it won't go forward. Crap.
Uh-oh.
Did you break it?
And we're done.
Yeah.
Panic button. Panic button.
I may have to stop sharing and restart.
Hey, we're back.
Hello.
Oh my God, that's a lot of people. Hey, look, we're joined by Liz, and we're back in the Bryn's case study.
Sorry, guys. I don't know why it wouldn't.
I mentioned dormant too much. That's probably what happened.
Does anybody else hear Family Feud, by the way? Because I keep on hearing Family Feud somewhere.
I heard it.
Oh, that's really weird.
Yeah, we're back.
All right. So here is our setup. We have the low amp current clamp coming right out the PCM, just as we showed here at channel D. And then we have another current clamp here, and then another one here. Again, they're going between the splice and the throttle body, and between the splice and the oil pressure switch. And if we go to these fundamental electrical classes, we'll know that if a short anywhere in these legs will increase current at this main feed here. But if there's a short here at channel B between the splice and the throttle body, or in the throttle body itself, then the current will increase in this circuit and in the main feed, but it shouldn't increase in this circuit here between the splice and the oil pressure sensor or the crank position sensor. So that's what we're going to do. And this is our setup. So we do just that. And here we have on channel D is the gold trace. And that's current on that main feed, like we mentioned a moment ago. And when the symptoms are present, we can see the current increasing on that gold trace. So the red trace is channel B, and we can see at that point that there is no activity here. But one thing I'd like to mention is if you're using current clamps, yeah, the red trace is between the splice and the throttle body, but we can see there's no activity. It's really stable there. No increase in current at that point. So we suspect that that means, again, that there's no short between the splice and the throttle body, or in the throttle body itself. But one thing I want to make sure you guys realize, and many of you are that are scoping frequently do, is paying attention. Does this look too static? Maybe it's too static. Did the 9-volt battery, did I forget to turn this clamp off last time, and we just had enough power for the clamp for it to work a little bit, and now it's not powering up and working. Main thing here is that it's so static, there's very little to no activity here. I don't know if we can trust it, but it doesn't really matter, because if you look at the green trace here, which is channel C, you can see that the current is increasing. Visually, it looks like it's increasing exactly the same as it is in the gold trace, which is that main power feed. And that, let's see, I can't. If you look at this green trace, the green trace is the current clamp that's mounted between the splice and the oil pressure sensor. So we're not seeing it increase on this between the splice and the throttle body, which it could be just a equipment error, or it could be there. But again, that doesn't matter if we can trust it or not, because we can see the current increase on channel C, which is again between the splice and the oil pressure sensor. So we know now that pretty confidently that we can contact the client and say, what we do know is there is a short between this splice and the oil pressure sensor. One thing I forgot to mention early on is that we did visual inspection several times. Obviously, that's kind of some of the first stages with diagnostic. Didn't really see anything. One thing to consider in this case is the oil pressure sensor is mounted under the intake, and a pretty good substantial part of that circuit is not something you can see visually without removing the intake manifold. So in this case, we have done enough testing that we can confidently tell the client we're going to need to remove the intake manifold and visually inspect that circuit between that splice and the oil pressure sensor. If we don't see anything in that circuit, we're going to recommend the oil pressure sensor. But even if we see something in that circuit, being that we have to remove the intake manifold anyways, we probably recommend the oil pressure sensor. But again, that's kind of the direction we took here. Once we removed the intake manifold, we got approval, of course. We removed the intake manifold, and this is what we found. And for those of you in the Rust Belt, the picture may not be great. You might be thinking that there's some just corrosion there. Well, really what's happening is the insulation is broken down, and we have the sensor reference voltage just shorting to sensor ground at that point. They're right next to each other in the connector.
Right.
So this is the moment that we were dragged through the trenches a little bit on this. It did take obviously longer than 30 minutes to diagnose this vehicle. If you were Keith DeFazio, on the other hand, probably 30 minutes is accurate, but not for us. We were dragged through the trenches a little bit. We did take the time. We celebrated. We were pretty excited about it. It's always good to physically see something that you suspect. It would kind of suck to pull this thing apart and not see anything and just hope to God that the oil pressure sensor fixed it. But, in all honesty, we would have been pretty confident at that point. So here's the question for you guys. Where were my inefficiencies?
Oh.
I think almost everybody was there. Keith DeFazio was not there.
No, I was not.
Liz was not there. Who else wasn't there?
Think of the words.
So what were the inefficiencies? That's the question.
Yeah, that's the question. And again, this is a case study to kind of show you guys that, you know, I'm no rock star. I mean, I usually get them figured out. Sometimes I get dragged through the trenches. This is one, you know, I'm not always efficient with them. I often think, you guys think of, you know, you hear I've said with regard to like handling relationships in the industry or just relationships in general, I think, what would Carlos Minshew do? Or George Minshew, I'm sorry. What would George Minshew do? But when it comes to being efficient with diagnosis, I sometimes think, what would Keith DeFazio do? So what would Keith DeFazio have done differently here?
I'm not so sure that I would have done anything differently. Actually, I think you did a better job than me as far as pulling out the current clamp, because I'm not so sure that that's the route I would have taken. Watching that 5-volt reference get pulled down, I may have isolated the 2 circuits, even if it required me to go in there and snip a wire, as long as it's accessible enough in order to make that decision.
I think a lot of times folks get these 5-volt reference circuit stuff and they start unplugging sensors right away, right? That's that's an efficient way to do it. But unfortunately, because when it's intermittent, that's really not a very solid test. So I can share with you guys
now. Wasn't there something up with the didn't the code information give you some kind of lead with the which circuit, which 5-volt reference circuit to check?
That's a very good point, and I'll come back to that moment in just a moment. But I wanted to share, I was just thinking just now, I thought it would be cool to share with the attendees what some of the feedback was in this Tech Talk session. Tim M. Jones brought up a good point. He basically said that he would have used the voltage and current. What did he say? He said something about basically being more efficient with regard to checking voltage and current at the same time, which I think that that could be. In our case, because we had 4 5-volt reference circuits and 4 channels on our scopes, that's kind of the direction we went. Another gentleman brought up the fact that we took the time to clear or do the relearn on the electronic throttle control. When we knew early on that probably wasn't the problem, we probably should have focused on the PO642, especially knowing that was intermittent. That was a good point. But then Pedro de la Torre brought up exactly what Chris Martino mentioned, and that's exactly it. I read this fault code description to you early on, and I'll read it again. Basically, the powertrain control module contains 2 internal 5-volt sensor supply sources, reference voltage 1 and reference voltage 2. Each of these 5-volt sources are split internally into parallel circuits to provide 5-volt reference to multiple 3-wire sensors. That's the big thing right there. But if you look at the possible cause list, not that this is always accurate, but it's a good idea to look at it because it can kind of give you an idea. If you look at this, it does call out 2 5-volt reference sensor circuits, but it's only calling out F855 and K852. And the reason it's only calling those out is because the PO642 is for sensor reference voltage 1 circuit low. I tested 4 circuits, but I tested 2 of those circuits were for sensor reference voltage 2. I did not need to test those. So early on, had I read the fault code description and just paid more attention during my research to what the possible cause list was, and just there's so many clues that I missed. And it's not a big deal, you know, to check the voltage on 4 traces really wasn't super time consuming, but it was an honest error. I overlooked the fact that I really only needed to focus in on reference voltage 1 circuits, which again are these F855 and the K852.
Hey,
so the
Bryn,
yes, sir.
I don't mean to interrupt, but a couple people were asking on YouTube, would the oil pressure sensor PID have shown anything?
So
you were looking at it.
Like I did mention early on that I monitored scan data in the. Let me see here. I monitored scan data early on to try to kind of get a direction, but what I recall. Let's see. What I recall with it is that either I don't remember. Either I got just more proof that I needed to physically check these circuits, or I didn't really get any diagnostic direction. It's one or the other, and I can honestly say I don't remember. This was diagnosed, I don't know when, probably a year ago or more. But I would say
wasn't when you're checking scan data, wasn't the vehicle working?
I did monitor it both. I think I monitor it both, but I can't recall. But what I can say is, and you guys can help me answer this question. But my guess is being that the current is because short is between the splice and the oil pressure sensor. It's going to affect every sensor circuit on this, or sensor on this circuit, with regard to, you know, the feedback coming back. The signals coming back to the PCM are going to be affected on all of these circuits in my mind. I can't answer the question.
Will they be displayed on the scan tool? You don't know.
I can't answer that with confidence based off memory, but just understanding how this circuit works, being that the voltage is dropping on the main feed here and the current is increasing on the main feed, I would think that all three of these sensors would be affected, and we would probably see some erratic scan data, is my guess. Would you guys agree with that? Or
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think that if it was that critical, I think you'd be setting those throttle codes almost immediately again.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the computer. I don't think you may. I for some reason I feel like you may not have seen it in scan.
Yeah, I wish I remember. You know how the guys these things are, right? You're in battle in the moment, and there's so many things you're doing sometimes, and you kind of forget what you did, and you do your best to kind of document. I do remember looking at scan data for kind of trying to get a diagnostic direction. The thing I don't recall is you know, whether I got just more confidence to go after that circuit, or if it gave me no direction at all. I can't recall. But I think, go ahead.
I was going to say I wanted to add what Pedro had said during Tech Talks, or I think what I remember him saying, if we monitored voltage and current at the same time, and we saw no voltage or low voltage and low current, it would be an indication that the 5-volt supply coming out of the PCM would be dropping out. But if we see voltage drop and we have current, it's an indication that a sensor or a circuit is being pulled down to ground.
Yeah, and that's kind of
right.
No, so that's kind of what I was alluding to early on, is trying to figure out what kind of fault would be creating the voltage drop, right? We could be like partially opens or real quick partial opens, or resistance, some kind, like Keith was saying, terminal tension at the PCM, or we could be dealing with a short, and how we would move forward. Realistically, the open would have to be between where we're testing and inside the box, right?
Hey, Bryn?
Yeah.
Sorry to bother you again. Carlos was saying that it was working while you're using the scan tool.
That's what was working.
Your boy Carlos, he was saying the vehicle is working
during when using the
scan
tool.
So when you were capturing scan data, the vehicle is fine. So
okay,
it didn't act up when you were there.
Okay,
that's
I can't recall. All right. What Pedro brought up was exactly this. His point was, my inefficiency was I was monitoring 4 different 5-volt reference sensor circuits when I only had to monitor 1, which is this reference voltage 1. Tim Jones is the one that brought up that I should be looking at voltage and current, but that was more or less just being efficient early on. But my point was, without really knowing that I didn't need to focus on those other 2 circuits, that I had 4 channels and I wanted to monitor all 4. So that's kind of the, you know, the downfall of monitoring all 4 circuits is, if I had just monitored the 2 that I needed to, I could have used voltage and current on that same point. So K854 is not our guy. That's on reference voltage 2. K852 is our guy, which we saw did not have the short. And then F856 is not our guy, but F855 is our guy. Again, just kind of crossing out the circuits. The gold and the blue one were not the ones we needed to monitor, only red and green at this point, because gold and blue is reference voltage 2 and red and green are reference voltage 1. So that's it.
This is why I want an 8-channel split.
Personally, I think you did a phenomenal job on that. I don't think you really missed anything there, and I don't think that you downplayed your efficiency. When you look back, since you still have that up there, if you don't mind, would you go back to that one slide there where you're showing the code criteria, 31? Right, so possible causes. It gives you 2 circuits.
Oh, shoot. Hold on. 31, was it?
Yeah, 31.
No, I just totally messed it up.
Oh, yeah, you moved it.
Yeah, go up 2. Go up 3. Right there.
No, that's not it.
Oh, dude, it's gone. Control Z, man. Control Z.
Hit the back button.
I did hit the back button. That's why I'm confused.
Hit Control Z.
Okay, right there. So 14 right now. Oh.
There we
go.
go. Stop.
All right. Yes, we got it.
It's like live.
So, So here's the thing. I don't think you missed anything at all, because when you look at that, right, you see 5-volt supplies circuit shorted to ground. Yes, it identifies the 2 circuit numbers. What it does not do, it does not say that those are the 5-volt reference supplies going to the crankshaft sensor, oil pressure sensor, throttle body assembly, and that's why it would be easy to look over. I know I would look at that quickly at a glance and say, okay, 2 5-volt supplies that could be shorted to ground. Does it mean that those are the 5-volt supplies going to those sensors individually? No, it never states that. So you did nothing wrong. You did a kick butt job, and well done, sir.
And honestly, how many times have we been screwed by the computer not telling us that all the 5-volt reference are actually the same inside the computer?
Yeah. In this case, I think the clues were there, and I'm not beating myself up at all. My main point is that the clues were there, and if you do take the time to pay attention to them, you would have seen them. And again, the point here is that when you analyze your own case study, the next time I run across this, I'm going to pay attention. Is it a P0642? I know it's reference voltage 1. All I have to do is look at F855 and K52. Not that I'm going to get the same thing on this car, but just the next time I get any kind of fault like that, I'm going to pay closer attention to this fault code description and the service information. Again, not beating myself up, but just it's mainly about analyzing our own case studies. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to touch on is, when you have a case study like this that kind of stumped you and you look back at it, you try to figure out what could you have done better, faster. That way next time you're better and faster,
Yeah, I mean, we all attend classes, and we should, like I mentioned, we should celebrate those moments. But it's our job every time we diagnose a car to analyze it so that we can get more efficient next time. It's hard to get efficient just by attending classes. You can get accurate, you can learn a bunch of stuff, but analyzing your own case studies is what helps you to get efficient.
So what you're saying here is
stop wasting time with your scope.
On the next one, paying more attention to information provided by your scan tool might make you more efficient.
It absolutely will.
Yeah, but
okay, that's all.
Scan tools sometimes
Moving on.
I told you I felt like I was sitting in a church pew and you were preaching to me. All right, I told you that.
I found it.
That's okay.
I found what you missed. I found what you missed, and it's right there, right above possible causes. What does it say?
For complete wiring diagram.
There, done. Right there. Complete wiring diagram. So everything that was down there for the possible causes. They led you to that section.
That's a good point. Another thing for people to consider is your aftermarket service information I think they all have 2 different styles now, right? They have OE or they have the aftermarket redrawn stuff. The redrawn stuff can be for guys like me that work on everything, and every manufacturer does things a little bit differently. The redrawn aftermarket wiring diagrams can be helpful, but you have to understand that they're not always the same and they're not always complete. So look at both. I did have this has changed from the Tech Talk session. Originally, this diagram here was like 3 pages or 3 slides, and Richard gave me a really big hard time over that. I was hurt my feelings for quite some time. So, just kidding. But I did redraw this so it was only 1 slide, just easier on the eyes. But that is a good point. Usually when you're using aftermarket service information, you have 2 sources of wiring diagrams, aftermarket and OE. I think it's a good idea to look at both. Pedro de la Torre gave me a hard time for looking at aftermarket a few months ago. So awesome. I think it's important to look at both. So that's it.
Good job, Brent. That was awesome. Oh my God, we're back.
Hang on.
I gotta change that background.
I got Brent on Spotlight. Hold on. Now we're back.
Up Brian's nose.
We lost Mike.
Wait, where did Keith go?
Oh, but we gained another Brian Collada. This one's way more attractive than the rest of them.
That's the prettiest Brian Collada I've ever seen.
And we know we could have gotten dressed.
Very cool.
We lost Mike Molesky.
Mike said, "This guy is definitely not talking as much as he was, as fast as he was in Vision. I'm out of here."
I'm still here.
There you are. Oh wow.
Weren't nearly as nervous.
All right, so as soon as he puts on his camera, we can move on to the important part.
He's putting his PJs on us. Hang on.
All right, come on.
Drum roll, please.
He brought us into the bathroom with him.
Mike was just doing her makeup. Don't mind this.
Oh, Mike was doing his makeup. He was doing his eyeliner.
There we go.
Well, just really quickly, I'll take the moment to introduce our guest, if you guys don't mind. We have Mike Molesky and Beth, which is also more attractive than Mike, although Mike has beautiful eyes. Good God.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
And then Liz Perkins, which is also way more attractive than Keith Perkins.
Well, she is the better Perkins, by the way.
True.
Anyways, we thought it would be cool. Liz is very new to the industry. How long ago what was your first day on the job?
Let's see, I got married 2007, September 15th.
So your first day?
No, honestly, I've definitely followed my husband's career and learned lots of things throughout his career. But as far as actually being on the job, I started August, say 15th, I'm not sure, of last year.
August
so
15th. So zero firsthand on-the-job experience until August 15th, and now you are literally programming modules every day, or at least 4 days a week or something.
I before COVID, yes.
Oh yeah, okay.
I have kids, so I've been staying home with them, being teacher and things like that. But that is not stopping me from doing trainings. So I'm, still trying to learn.
It's pretty cool, these webinars, man, right? They're overwhelming. Like, my wife's pretty upset with me. Like, she says I hurt her feelings because I'm never hanging out with her, and we're stuck in the same house.
Well, I wanted to say something really. I was stalking Mike, PSK Mike Molesky's Facebook page, and he went live last Sunday, and it was basically to talk about himself while Beth was cooking dinner, which looks like some really awesome chicken with some bacon fat. It looked amazing. I was a little jealous, got to admit.
I was drooling.
And in the midst of Mike talking about himself and asking Beth questions about himself, how awesome he was and how good his eyes looked, he touched on a point, and Beth started talking because Beth basically runs the PSK empire. But there was from what I understand, because they're going to talk. She's catching almost like a lot of flack. You're getting a lot of resistance, right, Beth?
Yeah.
As a woman in the industry and stuff like that. And you had some really great insights, and I just thought to myself, we really need to talk about this stuff. So you guys are here. Hi. So Brent, sorry, you take it away. I just wanted to say
No. I mean, that's great introduction to that situation. Mike, you opened your first shop how long ago?
I opened up my first shop in 2013.
2013, and then you just opened a second.
Part-time. So what happened was I was working for a dealership at the time, and
oh no, we lost him. But it's a great shot. It's a great shot. Maybe we'll come back.
Mike's great. Whoa. What happened?
You guys hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Hey.
There you go.
Yeah, of course I start talking and it breaks.
Yeah, your network bandwidth is low, we're saying.
Yeah, it is. It looks like I got 3 out of 4 bars there on the laptop. Anyhow, so quick summary of me. I was a technician for a long time. Then I was at an indie shop, then a dealer, then a Euro specialty shop. In the evenings while working at the dealer. And then I ended up leaving Honda after being master certified and starting my own shop. I went full time in 2013 at my own shop. And then in July of 2019, I bought a second location and opened up another shop related to mine called PSK Auto Repair. My first shop is PSK Performance. That is an import European specialty shop. This shop is a general auto repair facility.
How were you able to run 2 locations at the same time? That's what that, ladies and gentlemen, is what you call a segue.
That's pretty good. That's pretty awesome.
Miss Beth is she is everything that I'm not. Okay, when it comes to business and numbers, when you're a technician turned owner, you think differently than everybody else. It's hard for you to relate to business structure and following HR requirements and doing things like following your numbers and learning your numbers. That's tough for you. We know how to sell, fix, and make money, but then we have all this money and we don't know what to do with it, or we spend it in the wrong places, or we don't pay our taxes, or we're not saving what we're supposed to, and just not doing things the right way. And Beth has a business background, so she came in and got me caught up with everything that I was doing, got our taxes in order. She has organizational skills that I just could never dream of. So all of our numbers, all of our paperwork, all of our employees' documentation, keeping up to date on a lot of our licenses, things like that. That's all Beth.
So she's working on the business, but is she working in it too? I think that's what Chris was alluding to with watching that Facebook Live.
So yeah, she does work in the business now, just like Mrs. Perkins said there. Before COVID, we were all at the shop. Now Beth is a part-time shop runner, part-time teacher, part-time, everything. It's crazy right now. So let's go back a month and a half ago when times were good. She was.
Oh no.
Hold on, it's like a kung fu flick. It'll come back. It's just that delay.
Oh no, we're losing you.
Customers back, calling them about what their vehicles need. She's a jack of all trades.
Very cool. So
then
she's
ask her questions because I don't want to talk anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was virtually no audio, but it sounded like that Beth, you're doing some service advising as well.
Very minimal service.
Okay.
Advising. A lot of it is parroting what I've already been told, but yes.
But are you the face of the company, basically? I mean, you're the one when they walk in the door, they see you.
Yes.
Awesome. Now I heard you were on Facebook. I heard that you were saying that like people would come in, and these are like loyal customers that have known you forever, and they ask you about the goings on with the business. They try to talk. They try to really get to Mike, but they're trying to go through you to get to Mike instead of just going right to you, and it's been causing issues. Is that like a common thread?
Yeah, I mean, I think our customers, I'm going on about 4 years now. We're getting better. The new shop has a lot more problems with that now, obviously, because they don't know us in the community. Mm-hmm. So it's like starting from scratch. Our customers at our first shop, they're fine. We've gotten to the point where they know they're not getting past me to him because there's no point.
Really? Okay.
But at the new shop, no one wants to talk to me. It's like, you're not seeing an employee, you're seeing a spouse, you're seeing a wife, you're seeing a girl, I don't want to talk to you, I want to talk to him. He's not going to say anything different than I'm going to say, but they don't seem, you see woman, you see up front, they're done.
So can I ask, was Mike, when you opened that location, were you there in the front or in the beginning? Is that where that's coming from?
So that's not the real issue, because we're getting customers that are walking in for the first time. So this second location is 9 miles from my other one, in a small community that is blue collar. It's in a wonderful location, but it is a more old school community. So they're not used to seeing women in the shops, right? So these are a lot of older men and older women that come in and say, okay, I see that you're here, but I don't connect with this place at all. Let me talk to the mechanic that's in the back, because he has to be the one that knows everything.
Well, that sounds kind of like what Keith, you were saying, that Staten Island's a lot like clients don't really kind of see the need for a service advisor. They want to talk to mechanic. Yeah. Old school.
Now, Liz, that kind of brings us to you, because you're in the field, and Keith sent you out on your own. You got your own van, right?
Yes, I do.
So does this kind of ring true to your experiences?
Absolutely. I've had some run-ins with even like a shop owner's wife. I walked in the shop and she's like, "Excuse me," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm here to program." And I mean, I had tools in both hands. I am carrying in the computers and the power supplies, and she just looked. She's like, "Excuse me," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm here to program your Chevy," and she's like, "What?" So you do get the pushback. A lot of times, like if me and Keith are writing together, I'll hand an invoice and they'll hand him the check. So it's, there's a lot of things that we've run into as far as that goes, for sure.
And how does that make you feel?
Well, I can think anybody that feels left out or degraded in any way, would take it personally. Am I not good enough? I have knowledge too. Obviously I can do this. You have, especially like, how do I say this? Other techs in the shop. So not a shop owner, someone that's working for the shop. They look over at you and here you are, hooking the battery up. You're, hooking up to the car, and they just kind of look at you like, what is she doing? And then you fix the car they couldn't fix for 3 months. So, then there's those kind of small, like, victories, that you get. But, you just kind of have to let it roll off your back. I mean, in the end of the day, you can't take it personally. It's something that they have a problem with, not you.
So I want to bring something up real quick. I don't know. I think many of us here are kind of advocates for women in the industry. I think to some degree we think differently, though. There's kind of two schools of thought when it comes to women in the industry. What I found is women that really worked hard to kind of to be in that position. They don't, the mind. I think everybody can agree it really shouldn't matter what color, race, religion, politics, gender, none of that stuff should matter, but unfortunately it does. But women that have established themselves in the industry, a lot of them feel like they don't like a lot of the campaigns that are pushing women to the industry, because that kind of contradicts the work they put into there. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but I just think that's interesting. I've had conversations with different women that have been in the industry a long time, and there's two different schools of thought. Some really appreciate the campaigns, making sure women understand that there are roles in the industry for women, and it's technicians, but it's service advisor, it's business management, it's HR, it's bookkeeping, it's all kinds of stuff, engineering, manufacturing, whatever the case may be. And then there's other women that kind of don't like those campaigns because I don't really know if I'm explaining it right. They just feel like it puts too much emphasis on the female, I guess, instead of just focusing
on equality.
Instead of focusing on, this industry is for everybody. Females should not be restricted from being in, but we shouldn't also bring so much emphasis on having women in the industry either. I don't know if that makes sense. Matt may be able to speak more to that, because one of the persons I'm thinking most of is Cassie, which I think Matt's clearly been really tight with Cassie. But there's a few women I've had this conversation with, but she certainly has a different opinion from some of the other women that are pushing hard to get women in the industry. So sorry to go on that tangent.
I think of Bogey right away when we have this conversation. She's the first person that comes to mind.
Yeah, Bogey is one of the heavier hit. She does some heavy lifting with regard to campaigns to kind of make sure at least women knew that this is an option. And so I kind of respect that, but there are other opinions, and it's not, obviously men have their opinions, but at this point they don't matter. In my opinion, it's really, yeah.
So Beth, I wanted to ask you, because Liz was, she was basically saying she's got to be gracious. She's got to let it roll off your back. Being from Pennsylvania, and I could see the rage. I could just see the rage. How do you deal with that after a long day of just basically banging your head against the wall?
I think she beats up Mike.
Yeah, well, I would.
Well,
you're gonna have to forgive us. We lost everything before I beat up Mike.
Oh. Oh man. Yeah. Can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Okay. My question is because we were listening to Liz, and Liz's point was, sometimes you just got to let it roll off your back, even though it kills you. You being from Pennsylvania, and I can just see the rage in your eyes. I can just see it. And I could hear it in your voice on Sunday, which is why I really wanted to push this. How do you deal with that? how do you handle it?
Anger. I mean, anger is my first go-to. I think it's for everybody. I mean, because it's just disrespect, and it's not just customers. The thing we were talking about on Sunday actually was about other shop owners. It was about other people in our industry, and unfortunately, they're the ones that get the biggest pushback from. I'd like to say that everybody's open-minded, but they're not.
It sucks, and we lost you again. Oh, we lost. We're gonna nod. We lost you again. Oh man, lost.
Hey, you could dedicate an entire show to just this topic.
It would be, and I really wanted to go because there's a lot of good points there.
And there's a lot of good points, and then there's layers to it too, right? There's complexity.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to continue that rage topic. Liz.
Yeah.
What happens when it gets too much to be for you?
It beats up Keith.
Exactly. I call him and I complain, and he goes, "Wait, who did that?" You know, because he's my protector and wants to back me up. But we definitely have made.
Be careful with that.
Yeah. I mean, he does it. He just like, hey, like she's a tech. Like she's doing the work. It's not she's following me around, being my shadow. Especially at the beginning, I think that was the hardest part. Is that everyone saw me as like, oh, you're just bringing your wife as a tag along? No, I'm here to learn. I'm here to better myself. I'm here to grow in this business with him. This is a path that I chose. Am I getting an echo?
A little bit, but I think it's because I think Mike's setting up a new phone. We got.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, wonderfully. Oh, look, we can see blue eyes.
Awesome, because Beth was in the middle making awesome points, and then she cut out. I want to hear more about your rage and the disrespect again.
I mean, that's just who I am. Unfortunately, I have always worked in a male-dominated field. I was a executive chef before I took this job, as you want to call it.
From stress to stress.
I'm used to dealing with men, but I'm used to dealing it in a way where I can just show you how good I am, and then it's done. It's over. And unfortunately, I don't have that luxury right now because, people don't think about what goes into a business. They don't think about, who's keeping it afloat. You're doing the book. Okay. But you don't know what that means, but unfortunately, he gets most of the credit for what I do. So, yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. Mike went to Vision this year. So, Mike, you were gone 4 days?
Yep.
All right. And how did the business do when you were gone? Both businesses.
Hold on, I'm coming back. Okay. So, business was fine because Beth kept everything organized. And then there's below her is my lead technician at the other shop who helps keep everything organized on the mechanical side. She wasn't trained in the automotive field technically in any way. So whenever we have technical problems, my lead technician, Nima, takes care of all of that stuff. But when it comes to keeping the business related things going, keeping everything in line and everything in order, that's all Beth. So that's why I get to leave and go to Vision and go on these trips, is because of the team that I have, which includes Beth. It's a vital role.
And you don't have to worry about closing shop down. Shop's not going to make money because it's handled.
Now, I know that a lot of shops do that for Vision. They cost themselves a lot of money, and Vision's a wonderful experience, so it's worth it. But if I can avoid shutting down for an entire week, I will.
So is Beth going to come next year for some management classes and all that good stuff?
Well, we're going to give STX a test drive for her here. Hopefully that's rescheduled in a timely manner because we're going to STX with the TechNet group. So we have some TechNet things to do with the group there, and then you got that.
Awesome. Look at that. Mike, you're looking good.
Hey, thanks, buddy. Mother's Day to you. But yeah, STX. We're gonna if she likes it and she likes that type of training environment, then she can go to Vision next year, or maybe she'll go and I'll stay at the shop. Who knows? We'll see.
That
That's
might be
awesome.
suggestible because you were the very first coronavirus case, if I remember, at Vision.
2018.
Last year.
That was the one.
That's not even funny.
I said that 10 times this past year that I had Corona before Corona existed.
That's not even funny, man.
It's not.
No.
Tommy's
Getting flashbacks over here.
That was his roommate, I believe.
Tommy had to take him. Where'd you guys end? You ended up in another state. Tommy picked him up, picked him up from the hospital. Went to go pick up prescriptions and drop them off at the Airbnb, and I think they went to the.
Welcome to Iowa.
He gave me directions. I said, all right. He fell asleep, and I woke up. Hey, we're here. He's like, where are we? We're like in the ghetto somewhere in Missouri. Like, what the hell? Thanks, man.
I said, sorry, man. I was sleeping. I didn't know.
They should have left you there too.
Tommy says, where the hell are you guys staying? 45 minutes later.
So those are really awesome points, Beth. And yeah, like I said, I was hearing you. I don't want to say rant, but I mean it was a rant, and it was legitimate, and it was awesome because it came out of nowhere, and it was just like an endless pit of like things that needed to be discussed. That's why I really wanted to have you guys on tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably, go a couple hours on that rant if you're feeling feisty, but
It's what is it about seeing a woman in the office or in any position in the automotive field that makes you treat them any different? You know,
it shouldn't, but unfortunately, because it's so infrequent, and oftentimes when you do see it, it is.
We're not used to it yet.
Usually,
it's not just the auto repair industry. It's historic throughout anything that started out male dominated, which was pretty much everything.
Right.
It's just, I mean, I don't want to sound dismissive at all. I don't want to come off that way. I don't mean it that way. But part of it is just, it's going to take time.
Yeah.
You would never, our systems are so different from shop to shop. Rarely would you ever go to a dentist office and expect to talk to the dentist. It won't happen.
Right.
You'd never go to the clinic and expect to talk to the doctor. That just would never happen. But too many shops, it's too easy to access the guy or whoever, the brains.
The technical skilled trade.
Whatever
some of it I think is almost like a hazing, because even as males out there in the shop and males as service advisors, when they're up there first at the counter, it's a very, very similar experience in the beginning, unless they're overpowering or they have a tall stature and they're 350 pounds and a little bit hulking, they might get away with it. But being honest though, for the most part though, the person walks in there and they already have a chip on their shoulder. Their hand is in their pocket. They don't want to get rid of the money yet. They're there for a service, but they don't want to give up the money yet. So they've already walked in there most times, right? First-time customers we're referring to. Right? They walk in there and they're not sure. So now they have that unknown. They have the unknown of the person that's behind the counter, and it's a woman. So there's almost a third. So you have the person that's going to sell to you. That's a woman. You're not used to that.
It's a terrible combination, basically.
It is.
It stacks up against
that's part of why it becomes such a hard thing.
Yeah, like I don't want to demean or belittle what Liz was saying, because she's right. But if you're a really, really young tech walking into a shop as that mobile person to save the day, you're gonna probably get the same look. Like, what are you doing? What do you think you're gonna do? What are you doing here? Don't you have to be in school or something?
A similar look.
Similar.
I think. Yeah. I see. I know where you're going with that.
But I have to finish where I'm going with this. But then it goes to like what Beth mentions. Once Liz proves herself, it's a done deal. She's gold. Now Liz shows up. It isn't nothing. Liz is here. Hopefully she can save us again. If it doesn't, that's where the problem lies. Now we're into prejudice area, and that sexism, whatever you want to call it, that's a big, big problem. And
yeah,
it takes some alpha in that shop to step up and say, hey, she figured it out last time and we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys doing?
What were you going to say, Tommy? You were saying something.
I've had similar instances where I will go into a shop and like as a referral, and like they've never seen me, and I go in there. Some of them they're nicer, some of them are dumps, and it always seems to be some sort of prejudice. And I don't want to. I'm really not the type to just jump to say, you guys are racist. It's more like, okay, what's going on here? Like you call me to do something, and I'm here, and now I have this opposition. And so I go like, well, what is it? And sometimes I just like Liz say, I just like, whatever, man. You want me to do it or not? I mean, point blank, it's I just kind of think it's maybe the whole, oh man, we had to call somebody, and maybe
There's
it's
some
pridefulness,
there's some pride there for
yeah,
sure.
there's like it's just a pridefulness. But
for your case,
I think what I'm trying to say is I think we all kind of have our own form of resistance in this industry. I get resistance from my own people. I got people coming to the shop like, hey man, you need to hook me up because we're from the same country. Yeah, all right, man, whatever. It's just stupidities everywhere.
Yeah, not trying to justify it or, say it's at all okay, but we all have those just because we're human.
Correct. That's kind of what I'm saying. I think there's gonna be everybody has some sort of opposition in this industry. So I don't really. I think women get it worse because of the entire. Like, I mean, come on! I grew up in a dingy shop, and there was pictures of naked women all over the place. So I'm 36, and so I was around 12 years old. That was about 20 years ago. Sorry, my math is really bad right now. But it hasn't been that long, is what I'm saying, and it's gonna take a little bit longer.
Now, Liz. So speaking on that, and then speaking on what Matt Plaid Fonzolo was saying, do you find it getting better, or is it the same? Are you coming across the same stuff?
Yes and no. Going to Vision, I had a lot of people come up and shake my hand. Of course, I have no idea who these people are. They either see me on YouTube or they know me because my husband talks about me. You guys talk about me. Seeing that gave me hope. Seeing Vision, hundreds of people, and they didn't look down on me like, what is she even doing here? This isn't the right class for her. She should be in, the wife thing. She should be doing all the crafts or hanging out in the lobby or things like that. One thing I did want to touch on that you guys talked about is when you walk in, that perception of I expected to see XYZ. I expected to see a guy. I expected to see a different type of looking woman. That I think has just as much weight on it. And I don't know about for Beth, and I don't know if she's still even on here. I don't see her. But I think when you walk in, oh, there she is. But I think when especially with customers, and she's dealing with this probably 90 times more than I am because I'm walking into either the same shop repeatedly or a new one here and there. So I'm having the same run-ins with majority of the people that I see. But for Beth, they're walking in, again, expecting to see something that is a norm, what they consider a norm. They're looking for, like you guys said, a guy behind the counter, tall guy, heavyset guy, whatever it is, like in their mind, that's what they're expecting to see. So you have to get beyond that. And you have to, if you, like you guys spoke about, if you don't have that confidence, if you can't fix it this time, especially if that's your first time, that's hard to overcome walking back in that shop because you feel all eyes are on you. She didn't fix it last time. Is she going to fix it this time? Is she worth it? Your value is based on your performance. And then your confidence that's a mathematical problem, if you will. That gains you confidence or decreases your confidence every time walking into a shop. So.
Now, Beth, same kind of question. Is it getting better? I know the shop is new. The regular auto shop is new.
That's kind of what I was thinking. If the new location, they're probably a large percentage of their customers are new customers, first time customers. Yeah. So then in a culture, I think there's two things happening. Like Liz was saying, they're expecting one thing and getting another. But also if their culture is like Mike was saying, they're expecting that not only a man, they're expecting a technician basically. So I think that's just unfortunately, it's just gonna take time. Sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really tell you it's getting better because it's not. And I don't just mean at the new shop. I get this with most of what I do with this business. I get it with our accountant, who is a man. I get it with people we work with who are men. And Mike will go, okay, you need to talk to Beth. Well, they don't want to talk to me. And then they try to talk to him. And unfortunately, they get this thing where he doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, and it takes 2 to 3 to 4 times before they realize, okay, no, I do need to talk to her because she's the person I need to speak with. And it works out eventually with some of them. Now, I still have very strained relationships, unfortunately, with some of the people that we deal with, other shop owners, because it just doesn't change. Customers, it's better once they've been there enough, but it really came after Mike had to unfortunately stand up and go, you're gonna talk to Beth. I'm not gonna talk to you. She's who you talk to. And it was repetitive and it was over and over again. And, that took about the first 6 months of me working there.
Yeah. And I find that that's something I've had to do with even, I remember when I hired my first technician, my first full-time guy to give me a hand, because I started the businesses by myself, or the first one by myself. And it took a while. People just would not talk to anybody else other than me. And I appreciate that. But man, it's like, hey, listen, the reason this person works for me is because I trust them in their judgment. And you can talk to them just like you were talking to me. Okay. There's certain things where if you need to speak with the owner, that's a different story if that needs to happen directly, but you don't have to call and ask for me specifically to schedule your car in when I have 4 other people that can do that, and not that I don't want to help my customers or talk to them, but this specifically is falling back on they don't want to talk to Beth or even our other office lady at our other shop, her counterpart that we have. They just always want to talk to me. Because they don't want to, for some reason, they just don't want to hear it from them. And it's on a variety of subjects, It's a tough thing.
Well, I think you got the right person handling it. I like Beth's no BS attitude. I love it.
Are these entities that you could part ways with? Like you mentioned, an accountant. Is there?
This was a new accountant that we just got, and unfortunately, I'd like to say that would be something that would make me steer away from that person, but he's really good at what he does, and I respect him for that.
It took a while. It was one of those, hey guys, quit asking for me because I don't do the accounting. That is going to be Beth. So just call Beth directly. Please don't ask for me. But this is an older guy, in his 70s.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't. So we'll be sitting there in the meeting together and he'll just be looking at me and talking to me. And I'm like, bro, my mind is thinking about the car I'm trying to diagnose back there, or my head's on this, what am I going to be posting to the business's social media soon? That accounting is for Beth. The numbers is for Beth. It took a while for them to learn that, but they're getting it now.
Yeah. And I have to say that no BS attitude was not how I went into this.
Born out of necessity.
It was. I had a BS attitude in my last profession because you have to. But I went into this in a different mindset, thinking that I was going to be dealing with customers and people, and I had to be nice and I had to be personable, and I had, which I still do, your customer service voice. But then I found that there are different hats I have to wear, and that kind of, tells me what attitude I have to have and with whom. Being nice right off the rip. I try it, I see how it gets me there, and then, like I said, no eye contact, won't talk to me, doesn't answer my questions, talks over me. Okay, well, now I can't be nice to you anymore. I kind of have to put you where you belong. And
then Western Pennsylvania takes over.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I now know, how I have to talk to certain people and the way that our relationship will be from here out.
Awesome.
That really is nice, guys. I'm telling you, she actually is really nice.
And and really the most important question, which is really why I wanted to have you guys on tonight, is how was that chicken salad?
It was amazing. It was so I was asleep 30 minutes after I ate it. I was done.
Oh, nice.
The thing with the chicken and the bacon grease, I don't know. It was so good.
What's funny is I made bacon that morning. It didn't save the grease, and I had chicken too. Like I could have done that. I could have cooked with you, Beth, and I'm disappointed in myself.
You always have to keep bacon grease, man. Never done the try.
That's messed up. Yeah, I got to keep bacon grease.
Let me tell you, the reason why that I asked Beth those questions, not only to get something out of the live stream, is because it's something that we see more and more in the industry, and as Beth has been getting more involved with the business, I want people to start seeing her as an equal, not just the person that works on my business for me,
Or a spouse.
Yeah, or just that's not Beth that runs the shop. That's just Mike's spouse. So I'm gonna say hi to her, but go over her and ask Mike this question. And
her like business cards have owner on them?
No.
Just out of curiosity, I'm not trying to stir the pot.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Matt. Mike,
it's
you
an
gotta make
honest
business
question.
cards.
No, hers. Beth's a business manager or the manager or something office manager.
But okay, but that's still something of clout. So okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
It's
does.
an HBIC.
Yeah, I'm still the secretary.
The secretary.
The secretary.
Yeah. It's a rough thing.
But who else is in the office?
In PSK Auto, it's just me. I'm in.
So you're the office manager, but the only one there. So maybe there is no clout on.
Because I mean, I run both businesses.
I know. I'm just saying. I'm just following up with what Matt says. Your business card says off manager. They're going to one office and they're seeing one person in that office.
You know what? That's true. Yeah. Meanwhile, she handles all the employees at the other shop.
Yeah.
And all the payroll.
So what is the card? What should the card say, Chris?
HBIC.
Yes.
she's like, yeah, they totally. Yeah. What about you, Liz? Do they say HBIC too?
Oh, hey, at least Beth has her own business cards. So
I know you're listening.
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
Yep. So at least she has that.
It wasn't really my intent, but
no.
You're ruining two marriages.
I can ruin my own, so that's...
If you don't mind, just give me 1 second. Honey, bring more popcorn.
Chop.
I think that there's a lot of truth, and Beth is seeing it. I'm sure other women in the industry. I've actually been to a lot of shops that have husband and wife teams. I think that being common, they think that that's, she's just doing that to do that. It's not, I chose to do this. I have a million other options in the world. I chose to do this with my husband. And then you get the people, well, how could you work with your husband all day? How is your marriage working? One thing that I also wanted to bring up that I thought of a while ago is going somewhere wearing my uniform. Someone goes at the checkout counter in Walmart, says, "What do you do?" Looking at my shirt, says, "Oh, one automotive diagnostics and programming." She goes, and I said, "I work on vehicles." I said, "Long story short, there's computers in your car. We fix the computers in your car from shop to shop to shop." She said, "Oh, well, good. You can tell me what's wrong with my car." And I said, no, that's, no, I'm not going into that. Take it to one of our shops. I gave her some places. But you get it one way or the other. No, you can't do that. Or, then help me fix it. So I do see both of those things. You'll see the people at the nail salon. I'll go and get my nails done after. Wait, you have to have them extra thick. Why? Why do you have to have your nails extra thick? Well, I work on cars all day. Oh, what? Tell me more about this. Things like that. So, but I think there's a lot of components when it comes to a husband and wife team in business. there is a lot there. And I think that a lot of that does play into what we see on the daily basis.
All right. So awesome. So because we're still almost 11, but to finish this up, 10 years down the road, Liz, where do you think this problem is gonna be way better? Is it gonna be the same?
In 10 years from now, I want to be at Vision teaching these classes to at least 30% of the women out there.
Matt,
about next year.
You're talking to one of the guys who can make that happen. Just saying.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, we want to see this trend to progress. That's what I'm saying. I have a vision in this career. I didn't come in it just because my husband's in it, which is a very common misconception, I think. Oh, your husband does it, so you just did it with him. No. But again, I want to see it to continue to grow, to have that camaraderie that you guys, TBT is awesome. All these people sitting here with 137 people watching us right now. Having the camaraderie, it would be nice to have that as well.
So the business card thing, you declined business cards. I asked if you wanted them.
Okay.
Domestic violence.
And mine is
So
on
how
me.
does that
Mine
make
is on
you
me.
feel?
So Beth, same question.
I will honestly say yes, because 10 years down the road, a lot of these older guys are going to be gone. And
You're looking for him to die.
That is not off at all.
Like retiring.
Mechanics don't retire; they die.
If you want to get bored and you want something to read, and it's a little more physics aimed, but it's a book called "This Idea Must Die," and there's a lot of stuff like that. Prejudices, the only way they go away is the people that have them pass away. It's the truth.
So the other question, because business is obviously booming for you guys, in 10 years, shop number 3. Are we taking this nationwide?
No, I think we want to make the first one bigger.
Yeah, the whole point of shop number 2 was to expand to make shop number 1, which is our cash cow, bigger. The problem is we rent our first location, and to buy a building that is bigger than what we have in Pittsburgh is really expensive.
Yeah.
So if you guys have seen PSK2, it is an old school 2-bay gas station, and I absolutely love it. It has all the charm in the world, and like I said, I couldn't have picked a better location, but it's small. It's just meant to do quick, easy services, the money makers, the gravy work, basically. So we grew outward instead of up. So we want to actually not add shop number 3, but put PSK1 into a much bigger facility.
Now, the other most important question is: my shirt still sitting on your toolbox?
No, I think that technician whose toolbox you put it on, I think he took it home.
Oh, God.
He's wearing it without washing it, so he can smell crisp.
No, it was a brand new shirt. I drove all the way. 7 hours to put a freaking crankcase vent valve on his car, and the dude gave me a shirt, and we walked out and had fruity drinks.
He drove 7 hours to fix my car for free.
Hey, someone had to do it.
Oh man.
You guys just got me stuck though. I really 20 minutes, Liz. 1 or 2 case studies, how you go about figuring it out, stuff you've learned from Keith, stuff you've learned, classes you took at Vision last year. Not any one in particular one, although I heard you were in a really, really good hands-on scope class.
Yeah, I kind of recollected.
Yeah. But no, that would be really great. Just
so
how you approach the vehicle. How you approach
are we announcing that now? Is Liz #the Better Perkins going to be teaching at Vision next year?
Oh no, I don't know if I'm up for that yet. Hey, I've got
Bryn did it.
He let me do one. Anybody can.
Bryn did 2.
Yeah, next year Bryn only gets 1. So we have room for Liz.
However, we have rolled the idea of Liz Perkins of L1 having her own YouTube channel, so that might be coming out.
Yeah, I think that should be awesome.
Yeah, or Liz having the camera more often. So we'll see.
Ooh.
So
Business
another
cards
question.
and a camera. Yeah, what's up?
Another question for both ladies. Have you ever decided to start going out to some of the high schools or even some of the trade schools there, and ever talking about any of this with any of the young women that may be potentially coming into the industry?
That's a good question.
I, for one, not to cut Beth off if I didn't know if she was talking, but for me, I know that there are certain programs out there for the high schoolers, especially in even some very, very young as fourth and fifth graders, and I experienced them when I was a child. A lot of those programs where business owners or people in the workplace could come in and talk, those programs are slowly diminishing. The name escapes me right now, but it was a program where business-minded people would come in and teach once a month or things like that to a class as an extracurricular. From what I can find so far, that program no longer exists.
That sucks.
Yeah.
What about you, Beth? Are you teaching a vision next year?
No. No.
Why
no.
not? How to overcome mansplaining?
Ooh.
Mike has gone to a couple of his college's, events and stuff. Unfortunately, I'm either not invited or there just isn't an interest yet in that because I'm not the owner.
It's time to change that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're successfully running 2 thriving businesses in the middle of a freaking epidemic, and it's something to be said that you're getting that done. It's to be commended. Yeah.
There really isn't a lot of options for that to come up anymore. It's just there really isn't. There isn't a lot of schools that are inquiring about people coming to speak anymore. That stuff doesn't happen as often as it used to. So the opportunity is there.
I think we have to look for it now. Like in my area, there's a high school where I've gone out and just spoke to a class during career day, and it was an English class. It wasn't a auto shop or anything like that. But my point was, I got some kind of gruff over it. Like I was asking for some cool stuff to talk about, and some automotive technician networks, and they were like, "Why are you wasting your time?" I was talking to a bunch of English students or something. And my point is, if they're an auto shop, they already have an interest. Like our goal in this industry is to acquire better. I mean, the best, right? So we're not necessarily narrowing the pool by just talking to auto shops. So that's why I talk to students on career day and English classes. So.
And I don't know that vehicles are the same type of pop culture, the right terminology. Just seemed like years ago vehicles were an important part of your identity. I don't think young people care. They're not going out to get their driver's licenses we were, or generations before us. And the cars, they don't care about the engine, they don't care about the transmission, they don't care about 0 to 60 times or quarter mile times. Can my phone connect to it?
Yeah, Bluetooth. I need Bluetooth.
Yeah. I drove
my phone connect to it? And does it go where I need to go?
I've been driving since I was 14.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to drive. My nephew's 18 and he's like, "Can I get a bus pass?"
My son's friends in their 20s don't have their driver's license.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. I don't.
So I think we got to expand our market, if you will. So English classes, the high school near us I talked to about, they go on and on about STEM, and I was pushing STEAM, which is really just adding arts. And then thinking about somebody in art class that is really good at painting or sculpting. Have you ever thought about collision repair? Would that even occur to you? To get paid to paint, and maybe you're going to start out restoring it to OE level, but maybe one day you get to paint flames and you do a really nice job and somebody hears about it, and now you're doing flames on coworkers, and people are bringing their cars in specifically now for you to do custom work, and then maybe it ends up your own thing. That's how it would work, right?
Graphic design for vinyl wraps, things
Right,
like that.
right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Something expanding outside what we would normally waiting for somebody that loves cars, has grown up working on cars.
Yeah. So two things. Number one, Bryn, I don't think we're going to get to your second case study today. Number two, Justin Morgan texted me to tell me to look at his comments, and he said, and I quote, hold on, the schools are so engrossed in pushing college prep. Get Fanslow fired up about it. Fanslow, get fired up about that.
Well,
college prep.
Yeah, I don't want to mimic Mike Rowe too much, but there's a certain reality to that for so long we've been pushing people to go to college. You know, Dad worked in the coal mine. Don't do what I do. Do better. Get a better job than me. Although this job paid for everything you have, it's going to put you through college, put food on the table, put clothes on your backs. I worked in a factory. I worked my butt off. I sweat, but gave us the house, the vehicles, put you guys through college, gave you insurance. They're not bad jobs, yet we're pushing people away from it because somehow the better job is associated with a degree or not sweating for a living. It's so asinine. And then just the blue collar, white collar thing, the trades, they're suffering. Literally, we're suffering, which might work out pretty good for some of us because it should start driving up wages. But the reality is that skill gap is growing and growing and growing. Nobody's going to fill it. They're going to school to spend a lot of money for an education for a job that doesn't exist. And then they get out. They have no skills to get a job that will pay to help them pay back that school loan.
But going back to the point that you just made, like so many of us are, for a long time, it's don't do what I did. I want you to do better. I want you. You have to have this 4-year degree.
Lots of shop owners, a lot of mechanics sitting at the kitchen table. Good intentions, but
good intentions,
not well thought
but they're
out.
damaging the industry at that
terribly.
Point.
Well, not just the industry, but just any job that requires breaking a sweat, using your hands and your brain, right? Because
I guess
you know that
right.
whole notion of learn to use your hands. It's kind of BS because you could be a surgeon, you got to use your hands. You would never demean a surgeon.
So Justin had another good question. And this one's for Beth. He goes, why can't Beth teach a business class for small shop owners? And I'm going to add in at the brand new, really large PSK 1, but bigger building. Have it right there.
No, that's a great point, and I think she should, but I'll say something real quick. Obviously, we're dealing with this scenario where we really can't do stuff. I've decided we're going to do a car care. We've done car care classes in person, but I'm going to do a car care webinar. So Beth can do a business webinar for shops.
Oh, I'm hearing ideas. Beth, write this stuff down.
That's funny. I thought about the car care webinar just the other day because I was planning for a May car care clinic at the new shop, and I just didn't see it happening now. So I was just thinking, can I do it online, and how would I do it? So
it's not as fun. It's always cool. Customers really like being under their cars. I mean, all that stuff and changing tires and jump starting batteries, all that stuff is cool. You obviously can't do that, but it's just another, we do what we can with what we have. And in this, you're going to have a lot more attendance with a webinar, and because you can, the hands-on stuff, you have to limit it because you might have some clients that lose some fingers in the process. So,
look at the Car Guy Radio and things like that. I mean, they have amazing numbers of people that would just even listen and don't even get a chance to see it visually.
So yeah, do it, Mike. I'm going to do it. I've been trying to work on the presentation. I've done some before, so I have some presentations, but the last one was more for new drivers, so I have to kind of transition it over a little bit, but I think it should be good.
Yeah, my last one was a ladies' night, so it was focused on how women should talk to shops and how to do basic maintenances and checks. So I didn't say any of that info. I kind of just did it off the top of the head with a bunch of people.
you know, Justin mentioned Beth doing a class on business management stuff, but my opinion is she's in a perfect position to tell clients how they need to interact with shops. Like they don't have to talk to the technicians. One example, like you can do a presentation to explain like how things should go in a great shop, what they should expect and stuff like that. I kind of plan on doing some of those small videos for our social media stuff. Is just kind of explaining what the process should be like, you know, for a check engine light coming on or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. It's something that I don't think we've thought about before, but it's kind of perfect. That's why we were talking about the girls' night, because, or the ladies' night or whatever, because it is, you know, I interact with a lot of the women that come into the shop, and we do get to learn, and I get to teach them things, and they're receptive. So, I mean, I think that's a really great idea, teaching people how they should be interacting and how, you know, because I think one of the biggest things, and it's something I learned coming into this industry from a different one, is, you know, as a normal person, I didn't know how things work. You know, I just didn't. My family's never been a small shop using kind of family. It's always a dealer. So, you know, I didn't know how this ran or what to expect or how I was supposed to handle it. And I think a lot of people don't. And I think that's a big problem as well.
Absolutely.
One thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, Liz.
Sorry. One thing that you might mention, Beth, that we keep hounds on people is you shove 40 grand across the table for car keys. Yay, my car can run. It takes me from A to B, but I know nothing about this car. How many people read the owner's manual? How many people know when you're supposed to have your oil change done? How long your transmission fluid should last? All of these things that would be a basic knowledge that no one has for the vehicle that they've spent so much money on to get them from A to B that has Bluetooth. So just to throwing that out there is something that you might discuss.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, we have people that come into the shop that don't know how to put air in their own tires. You know, I'm teaching people every day how to put air in their own tires.
And I think that I mean, I'm trying to be sensitive to this because you don't want men telling you what you need to do, right?
No, don't hold back. Just say it.
But I think really what it takes is it's going to take patience, because like you guys have said, there's an expectation and you're not meeting that expectation, unfortunately. But I think what it's going to take to overcome it is to try to find something you're passionate about. Maybe it is teaching clients what they should expect from a great experience at a shop. Find that passion, and it'll come across, like, because when you're getting mansplained to and people aren't trusting you, that you're not the person to talk about, that's going to wear you down and it's going to make you just negative. So maybe that you have to counter it by finding something you're passionate about, maybe like teaching clients. I don't know.
I mean, I think Liz talked about it. If we don't just yeah, what I said, my first reaction is anger, and it is. But if I let that get to me, I would have been done 6 months into this. You know, I wouldn't be here almost 4 years later trying to grow this business with him. If I let every time someone mansplained something to me or didn't want to talk to me or hung up on me or was mean to me and not mean to him, I wouldn't be here. And I think Liz is in the same boat. I mean, if we let that affect us, we wouldn't have a 5-year plan, you know, but I think we are kind of just doing what we need to do. It doesn't make it cool, but here we are.
That goes for everybody.
Plus, you get lost in Mike's eyes because they are pretty.
Mine are better.
Let's see. Put eyes both. Let's see.
No.
But that goes for everybody. I think everybody needs to find the passion, like Matt was talking about. You see in these, I selfishly think of our industry when we talk about trade skills and how parents don't tell their kids, I wouldn't want my kid to do this. No way. You crazy? But the damage that does, but the reason is most people don't find the passion. They don't find a reason to be passionate. They just want to be unhappy in their lives forever, you know? I think that's part of what we experience, part of the problems we experience in this industry. And that's what's refreshing about seeing Liz at Vision is she's super excited to learn. Like, she's very interested in learning that stuff. And that's why 200 plus 300 plus people are shaking her hand, and she's, they're interested to hear her story. And that's why we're interested to hear your story. Excited to see something different and kind of moving in the right direction. That's my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, wow, I am tired. It's like 11 o'clock. It's 11
So
o'clock.
we're not doing my second presentation.
No, I think we do that next week.
We'll try
There
to
we
get.
go.
So we've lied to everybody saying this is the last.
No. Next week is an encore.
Yeah, this is or the
It's an
grand
encore.
finale.
Everybody's got their lighters out. They want
Rolling Stones.
Well,
Or
and to be completely
phones
honest,
out. I show my age there.
Bryn didn't get to finish his presentation of Vision, so this is the first time it's been presented in full.
I was excited to finish it tonight because it totally left everybody hanging with the Vision, and I wore the shirt tonight, man. Dang it!
I got to wait.
You got a week to wash it, so.
I do want to mention something before we leave, and I forget. For those of you who are not signed up, tomorrow at 4 Eastern, Mr. DeFazio right here is doing a webinar on on Honda seat weight sensors. And yes, you may think it's boring.
No.
But he found a way to make this super duper duper interesting, and it's going to be awesome. So if you haven't signed up, find this webinar and sign up for it. It's going to be awesome.
Find it on trainbytext.com under webinar training.
Yep, web-based training, and then onto the calendar that we have there that has oodles of webinars that are there. Thanks to Brian.
There's a whole bunch I got to add tonight.
Yeah.
Hans had sent me a couple that I need to add, so stay tuned. I'm always adding more.
Awesome.
There's also one tomorrow night at 8 o'clock.
Who's that?
That might be me. That's
I might be there too.
Are you gonna discuss the load box again?
Moving on.
I could talk about the load box here and not get in trouble. It's okay.
Boy. All right. We're going to discuss many different types of electrical test tools.
Probes, load boxes.
All right. Yeah.
There's a lot of load.
And there will be no drawing either. There'll be no drawing on wiring diagrams, so I should be safe.
Chris is never going to be invited to be on the panel side of these things.
Well, you can log in under my name.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Listen,
Okay.
you can't say load box to a room full of mechanics, especially one like me who's as immature as I am, and not expect me to say something. I can only have
You got
so
the
much
immature
decorum.
part right.
Only so much decorum. And I did the best I could with what I got to work with. That's all I got to say.
All right. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. So tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, is Keith DeFazio's Honda seat occupant classification class, right?
Yeah.
And then 8 p.m. Eastern is Richard Falco's electrical class. And then you do that again Friday, right? In the afternoon, something like that.
Yeah. So there
Friday
is
at
no
1, yeah.
reason.
Yep.
There's no reason for you not to catch all of this awesome training for the great price of nothing.
I have a feeling that
No
the
charge.
seat occupancy class is going to be the best seat occupancy class you've ever seen.
And maybe the only one.
I tell you what, I was skeptical. I was like, okay, because I heard Keith's original idea about it and it was awesome. Then it turned into a seat occupancy history and how it works, and then I saw the material. I'm like, you know what? I learned a lot. So you guys are gonna learn a lot too. It's gonna be awesome.
I'm actually excited about it. So
A lot of
4 p.m.
a lot
though,
of
man.
people out there don't understand it.
Well, that's the whole point of it. Nobody understands what are the systems and how they affect everything. And I'm explaining something that's not even my presentation.
Liz, you gonna be there? 4 p.m. though. Come on. What the heck?
It's 3
4
time she'll be working.
p.m. Central or
No,
Pacific?
3 p.m. Central.
3 p.m. Okay.
By seniority, they had to make sure that I wasn't at 8 o'clock.
There's so many webinars though. That's the problem. Is everybody's trying to find a little time slot.
It really is.
There's so much. I mean, companies competing with the same company. It's crazy.
What's crazy? It's not even competing though, because it's all it's crazy. It is, but it isn't. It's honestly with what's going on. It's a great time that we're living in. Even though it's not, but it is. But it's not, but it is. It's just
The whole problem behind all this is that they don't go to the Trade by Text website and use the calendar. If they did, they would know that they were running 2 at once.
I don't know. It's there, and then, but I still don't go. I just tell Brian to send me a link.
No, you ask me all the time. Where's the link for the whatever?
That's why we have
calendar.
27 coladas in them.
Well, all of those links have been fixed. All right. So
that remains
there's
to be
still a couple more Brian's, but that's because they already registered when I
Wow, it's 11 o'clock, guys.
Yeah,
so
we
will be back, and we will try to get the encore tech talks together for you guys next week. Hopefully, we'll try for next week.
We still have Keith Williamson to
get Keith back in here.
Keith was supposed to come on tonight, and we would have had 3 presentations to get through tonight, so it would have been like a 2 a.m. kind of deal. But no, he was supposed to come on tonight. He had some internet problems. So when we come back next week, hopefully he'll join us, and we'll do his and my final one. Put closer to mine. So embarrassed.
And Bryn promises he's gonna drink coffee right before he goes on.
It was weird. It's weird, like, to try to present like this, and I have the whole screen, and I can't really see you guys. And then if I see you guys, I cover the screen, and I can't see the next slide. It's weird.
That was my struggles last night. It's very different doing this.
I mean, the energy in that room, though, man, it was
awesome.
It was pretty awesome. So it was way easier to be animated. I'll try harder next time, Chris. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, guys. You're not making me sweat for tomorrow at all. Not sweating at all now. Thanks.
It sucks to talk to a dead room. It's the hardest thing to do. And yeah, Keith, you're gonna do great tomorrow. Gonna do great.
All right.
I just pictured everybody in their underwear this time. It's cool. That's why I was.
We do that with you anyway, Bryn. All right.
All right. Is that it, guys?
That's it.
That's it.
Liz.
I follow you guys on Instagram. Red pill, red pill, red pill.